We're going to create a 3D model from our character. So first of all, we need to turn off our other layers apart from our outline. Make sure that's selected, and we're going to go to the Magic Wand tool and select the background area. We're going to inverse, so we go select, inverse, or Control Shift I or Command Shift I, and now we have our basically our character selected. I'd like to include the whole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deselect that area by holding down Alt, and I'm just going to get rid of that middle area so that now it's not included in my selection. I also want to disregard this area here because it'll make it look a bit too bulky, so I only want the front of my donut selected. So I'm going to go to my Magic Wand tool. I'm going to hold down the Alt key again because Alt is minus, so it deselects a particular area that I'm doing. So I'm going to trace around that. You don't have to hold down the Alt key the entire time. You just click on it once and you'll be able to continue using it. So you can continue tracing around an area that you don't want. So I'm going to go all the way around. Make sure you do take it all the way around the outside of something you're going to select. Don't take it too close to the line. So if you take it too close to a particular line, it tends to miss areas. Double click and it's deselected. Now I do want these arms included. So I'm going to make sure I go back to perhaps my Magic Wand tool. I'm going to unclick contiguous and I'm going to include that in my selection. I'm just going to go Control Z because it included too much. So I think you'll probably have to do the same with your the little tool, the magnetic lasso tool. Okay, so make sure you hold down Shift this time because we want to include it, not exclude it. I'm going to trace around that area around the outside. Now these arms are quite thin, so we might make them also a little bit thicker as well. So it's a little piece there that is included, and I don't want that. So Alt to minus. I'm just going to trace around that little selection there because I don't want it included. Okay, so we basically have the outline of our character. Now, in an ideal world, those legs are probably a little bit too thin, so I'd probably make them a little bit thicker before I do this again. But for the sake of showing you how to do the 3D version, we're going to just take him over and do that. So now that we have that actually selected, we're going to fill that area with grey. So we're going to go File, New Layer. Now I could put this into a new page, which might be a good idea to do. So if you would prefer to take your outline layer into your new page, you can do that beforehand as well. We're going to rename that grey because we want to fill this area with grey. So I'm going to go grey. Then we're going to go to our fill tool. Make sure you have that layer selected over here on the right hand side in your layers. I have a grey selected that I'd like. It doesn't matter whether it's darker or lighter, that's okay. And then I'm going to fill that area with grey. Turn off your other layer at this stage and Control or Command D to deselect. Now there's a few little pieces that are not quite tidy, so I'm going to use my paintbrush tool just to tidy that up. Make sure you are in like a good brush, like maybe a hard brush as well, so full hardness of 100 and maybe a little bit bigger than that. We might just select a little bit bigger, and then I'm just going to go around and just add to my selection just to tidy it up a little. It's got some little sharp ends on it that I don't really want included. And this is where I can also thicken up the arms and the legs as well. So I'm just going to tidy up those areas. Make the arms just a little bit thicker. There's a little bump just there. I'm just going to get rid of that. Make his hand look a little bit more realistic maybe. Do the same on the other side. So it's up to you how thick you'd like that to be, but you just imagine it being a 3D version, and you want it to just be that little bit thicker. There might be some little bumps on yours that you might like to tidy up. Now there are a couple of ways that you can do this. You can make it your 3D version quite thin. We'll explain a little bit more about that in a minute. Or you can keep it at a wider, chunkier kind of appeal. Just make that foot just a little bit wider there at the base. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. And now we can go and convert our character into 3D. So I'll just close brushes, go up to 3D, and go 3D extrusion from this selected layer. What that will do is it will convert your Photoshop into 3D. You need to have enough space on your computer to do this. It'll ask you whether you want to go to a 3D workspace. You go yes, and you'll come up with that 3D area. Now if you are not selected, this actual area, little box, these little tools up here will not be clear. You won't be able to see them. So you need to have that selected. So you'll notice here at the moment it's just on a normal properties version. If you don't have properties open, by the way, go to Windows and open properties. I'm just going to close it for the sake of closing it. Then go to Windows, Properties, and that will bring up all your properties. You do have to have this selected for what we're going to do. So make sure there is a square box around this. Then your properties will come up with a little star and a little curvature tool. These two we're going to use at the moment. So this one's called Mesh, and our extrusion depth, you can have a look at the depth up here. So it's quite wide at the moment, so that's why you can't see any detail. But if you actually can also turn this around, rotate it, you can see how wide that actually is. So it's quite wide. So you can make it nice and thin. You'll notice you'll get to halfway point and it'll start heading out the other way. Don't head out that way because we want it to be fairly balanced. Just keep it in the positive mode. And let's just keep it at maybe something like 21 millimeters at the moment. But we'll keep that at 2 centimeters in reality. Let's make that about 30 millimeters. Okay, so I'm happy with the depth of my character, and now I'm going to go up to my curve. So it's going to bring out, it's going to add a contour to the actual character. Now you can do it just from the front. Let's just do that, but we'll switch over and take our angle all the way up to 90 degrees, and we can add a strength of, don't do it too unnatural. Obviously if you take it out the further out, it will look quite unnatural. So keep it fairly natural by keeping it minimalistic in this setting particularly. So maybe something like 10, 15 would probably be enough. Now that's just from the front. So I can have it a flat background. So you can imagine if that's mounted to a wall, it's not going to stand up probably very easily with those spindly little legs, but we will be able to attach it to an actual wall or something like that. But we might like to have it coming from both front and side. So I'm just going to undo all of that just for the moment. Okay, Control Z is not working in this section, so maybe don't do that. So let's go back here, and I'm going to go front and back. So this time we'll go front and back, and we'll take that out. You'll notice that the other side is not matched with the other side. You need to do them together if you're going to do this section. So just going to go and see if Control Z, Control Alt Z, let's take it back a couple of steps further. There we go, it's working now. There we go. Okay, so we've got our flat character again. Oops, I went back way too far. Let's hope it won't go back too far. Okay, let's go from here again. Select our character. Bring down the extrusion depth. So I'll just go back a step. We'll just go through this one again. I'm just going to turn him around so you can see. There's our depth. We're going to this time go front and back. Remember your angle needs to be at 90 degrees, so we're going to bring that up. And we're going to take it out from both sides this time. So probably around a strength of, let's just keep it at 13. I think that's probably sufficient. You can have a bit of a look at it on the side to see what that's like. Have a look from the front. And then I'm pretty happy with that. So once you're happy with the depth and the strength of whether you want it coming from the front or the front and back, or you might like to have it flat and thin. So it's entirely up to you. You can play around with those as much as possible. When you're happy with it though, go to 3D and we're going to export 3D layer. Make sure you change the file format to STL. Go OK. And then make sure you save it to a file that you're happy with. So I'm going to just pop it into my character design and my 3D printer, and I'm just going to call mine test for the moment, and that will save as an STL file. And then go save. Okay, the thing that you need to do at this stage is, if you're going to go back into a normal workspace, make sure you go up to the little tag at the top right hand corner and go back to Essentials, and that will get you back to a normal workspace and out of 3D workspace. This is then saved. It's still showing you the 3D version, but you can turn that off, and then you can turn all your other layers back on. You might have done this in a separate layer or a separate page, which is probably the best place to do it. Otherwise, that's the end of our 3D model version. Thanks. Hope it goes well, guys.